Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever and wherever you are. On this week's episode of Greetings From, we discuss the Red Strings Club, a cyberpunk narrative game created by the Deconstructeam. Fair warning, we do discuss all things about this game, so it is a spoiler episode. If you have not played this game, or do not wish to be spoiled in any way, shape, or form, this is not the episode to listen to. That said, we hope you enjoy our thoughts on this excellent game.
Greetings, travelers. It is May 12th, 2019, and this is the Greetings From podcast. My name is Rebecca Faye, and I am joined as always by my two very good friends. First, all these moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain, won't they, Miss Olivia Quinn?
I don't even know what's going on right now. I've lost all of my moments. I'm just trying to get through it right now in this hellish dystopian world. What's up? I'm here for a podcast.
I do feel like we tend to start each podcast being like, life is awful and miserable. Let's talk about video games.
I feel like, okay, I need to get this out here because I keep thinking about it. Every time I do the intro, I'm like, man, I'm so awkward. And then you and Tyler kill it, and I'm like, fuck. So just go ahead and kill it, all right? Thanks. We can move on now.
I'm like afraid I'm not going to kill it because obviously within Cells Interlinked, it's Mr. Tyler Smith. Do you get that reference? Can I make that reference on this podcast?
Is that a hacker?
Finally.
Reference?
Finally, it happened. Olivia wins this one.
I was gonna be all like, I'm in the mainframe hacking in to this podcast, but I don't know what that reference was.
Oh, I just decided 2 seconds ago to do quotes from Blade Runners.
Oh, okay, got it.
They're just Blade Runner quotes.
Sorry.
That's all. Thanks for humoring me. This has been the Greetings From podcast. My name is Rebecca Faye. All right, dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to add another episode in our great Spoilercast lexicon, of which there has only been one before this one, but it's fine, we're working on it. We all played a game called the Red Strings Club, didn't we?
Sure did.
Yeah, I made some drinks.
Yeah. Did you?
They were
in
good.
real life or in the game, or both?
Damn.
In the game. I mean, I wish I could have been making them. I'm terrible at making drinks, so I felt really accomplished being able to do it in the game. Like, I was like, wow, I'm a really good bartender.
Yeah.
I wish I had been making drinks as I was making drinks in this game. That would have been awesome. I didn't think of it.
While wearing a VR headset playing the game. That would have been the ultimate Cyberpunk
honestly,
move.
Yes. I hope that's... what's the studio who created this game? Wow, I can't even remember their name.
Oh, Deconstructeam?
Yes. I hope that is their next goal with this game, is to make it VR. Or something. Or even if it's just literally... I'm sure there's already a Bartender VR game, but like, let's just do Red Strings Club.
Is there... You know what I really want, now that we're on this conversation chain? Do you remember how, like, right when, Guitar Hero was really popular and Rock Band was really popular, they came out with, like, DJ Hero, and it was, like, turntables?
Oh my god,
mm-hmm.
Yes.
I want that, but, like, bartending.
You have a shaker.
And a VR headset. Yeah.
Oh my god, I saw a game on Giant Bomb where you're in a VR headset and you make drinks, and it's super, like, poorly constructed. Like, it's just a very shitty, like, 3D, like, drink simulator, and it's bad.
It's like Octodad.
Yeah, but it's, like, worse. Like, it's all, like, I don't like throwing away, the term, like, a skin. What is, I guess I don't even know, where you're, like, an asset flip or whatever. But that's what it felt like. Like, they just downloaded a bunch of assets from the Unity store, and they're like, finally, we can make our beautiful drink game, and it just barely functions.
Oh.
Not like this game, which is good.
Well, yeah, so did you guys play? I played this on the Switch. Did you all play it on the Switch, or were you all playing it on the old PC machine?
I played it on the Switch as well. I started it on the PC, and then the Twitch app decided to take a giant shit and lose all my games for some reason. So I had to switch over at the last minute. Yeah.
Oh.
So
wait, so did you have to play through it more than once?
I played through the first, like, hour of it more than once.
Okay.
Oh.
Great. That I'm sure you have a lot to think about that
I'd
one.
like to hear what your two different experiences were for that first hour. I played on the PC. I played through Twitch. My Twitch library did not delete itself into the mainframe.
Tyler keeps one-upping me here. Great.
I don't know what to tell you.
It's okay.
And I didn't know it was on the Switch. I kind of wish I had played on the Switch because I feel like this is more of a controller or console game than it is a PC game. Because let me tell you, mixing drinks is a little difficult with your
really?
mouse.
Because it was not that easy with joysticks either.
Oh,
I played it on the Switch, and I was like, am I just dumb, or is this... I thought
that's how I felt.
Okay. I'm so thankful you guys. Okay, can I ask? Whenever you guys had the shaker glass to actually make the drink, were you holding down the key?
Yes.
And you just kept spilling it everywhere? Because that's what happened to me. Is I was like, I really suck at shaking this thing. I'm just throwing my drink everywhere.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out. Like, you click on it and you release the button to hold it, and then you like can just shake it all the way the fuck you want. But if you hold the click button down, then it registers as like, oh, you're gonna pour it, and yeah. It took me, like, literally my third try doing that, and I was like, oh, that's what's going on.
Since we're on this train of, like, not knowing things, or, like, missing things that are critically obvious, how long did it take you guys to put together that the drink labels, like, corresponded to the directions?
I think I was on my second person.
Oh my god.
Like,
I got through, 7 people. I got through, like, nearly everyone before I put that together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh my god.
I was just
thought,
like,
well, I mean,
it was so bad. I was like trying to rearrange my drinks, be like, okay, the brown one goes down, or no, wait, that's the vodka, and just trying to put it all together. And I played through the first part like twice on both systems, so I'm just bad at this, y'all. Bad bartender.
It wasn't very obvious.
It wasn't very obvious, to be fair. I think I only got it because I'll just say, like, oh, I went to graphic design school, and I know what graphic design is, and design. So, like, I just got on
everybody
right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So, listen, I didn't figure it out. Here's how I figured it out. I looked at the green and yellow bottles. It was specifically the green bottle was the first one. I was like, oh, the green is going left. And then I was like, oh my god. And the brown bottle, which is bourbon. I wish, first of all, it would fucking say tequila, bourbon, vodka, or absinthe on these things, and not like you had to figure out yourself. A little confusing on that part, but I figured it out. And then that was like the first one was the absinthe bottle that's green, that's pointing the arrow to the left, and I was like, okay, this is cool. The most like abstract one is the vodka, which is the down arrow, because the tequila, which is yellow, goes to your right, and the bourbon, which is the brown bottle, points up. Like, it distinctly has an arrow pointing up. But the vodka is an upside down triangle that isn't a triangle, it's like a guitar pick. And like that's the most confusing like design, in a sense that you can't register that, oh, it's an actual arrow, you know, like, because everything else they're like arrows, but that one wasn't.
Thank you for defending my oversight and inability to use context clues. I really appreciate it.
Let me tell you, okay, like it took me by surprise as well, and I was like, wow, that's really smart. I can't believe I got that, because I was completely blown. Like, I didn't know what the fuck, which ones to do it with, and I was just like doing random things, and I thought I was so awful at the game, and I was like, ugh. And then the quizzes happened afterwards, and I was like, I don't know fucking shit. Anyway,
can I ask how many like secret? I know we're off track here, but I'm just really interested. How many secret emotions did you guys get, if any?
0.
Because I didn't get any until I looked at the guide.
I got a couple by accident. Like, I sort of accidentally stumbled into the pink tequila thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had no idea that existed. I mean, like, I knew it existed, but I didn't know that it was a thing that I could actually do. I thought it was just like flavor in the game.
Oh, yeah. No, so I'm interested, once we get into it, to hear how that particular interrogation went down, because I'm not clear if that guy just told me everything because I gave him pink tequila, or that's just what he does.
Okay, let's get into it, because I like that guy. Weird. That guy's a good conversation, like, to have, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess we should set the stage a little bit. I know we mentioned already that this was a game done by Deconstructeam. Their game before this one was a game called Gods Will Be Watching. Did either of you play that one?
I have not had a chance to look at it.
I have not played it.
Okay. I played a little. It's very similar to this in visual style. It's weird because it's like a group of people who are, I don't know, this is gonna, please don't send in a correction email if I'm really wrong about this, because I'm really hazy on it, but it's like a group of people who are stuck together, and like you have to make decisions to try to get through it, and people die a lot, and it just is kind of a feel bad experience anyway. Yeah, so I was excited about this game because people kind of, I think, came out of Gods Will Be Watching and were like, uh-huh. And then this came out and it seemed like it got a lot of really good press, and I thought it had a really good showing. I know it was my salutation a couple of weeks ago, and so, like, yeah, that first couple hours is really, really powerful, I think. So another thing I think is also worth mentioning, too, is that this is a Cyberpunk game. And we're in a zone where Cyberpunk is cool now, I guess, because the Witcher people are making the game about it. And, you know, I also thought it was weird. I have not played Valhalla, the Cyberpunk bartender simulator. Olivia, have you played it? Is it similar to this game? Because I didn't really realize that Cyberpunk bartender was a genre.
I've only played a few minutes of it, but I do think
Okay.
Like the actual act of making drinks is similar. I think it's a little more complex in Valhalla. And so I actually was kind of expecting that from this game, and like the minimalism of making drinks in Red Strings Club was kind of surprising to me. To be like, oh, these are your mechanics, and like until you get the shaker glass, it's like, well, I'm kind of just trying to pour things in as best I can, which I thought was, you know, interesting, but also a little surprising, because I was just like, well, I'm on this Switch controller, which I already have problems with because I think my left joystick's broken, and oh fuck, my drinks got poured over. Well, okay, I'll restart.
I do have to say, I like that nobody in the universe was upset. Like, I like that you could pour the drink out to start over again.
Like,
right, but you were just sort of like throwing it into the air. Like, there it is. I'm just going to pour it on my shoes.
I kept waiting for the moment where they would be like, okay, now make these drinks, but they have to be done in a second. Like, that was what I kept fearing would happen. And I'm so happy they didn't go that direction, because it would have made that whole game a lot worse, in my opinion.
That feels like it would have been a Lucas Pope design, where, like, you have a limited fucking amount of time to make this goddamn drink, and if you don't, like, the patron gets upset and leaves. If Lucas Pope was involved in this video game, that's the kind of mechanic he would implement, and it would stress you the fuck out.
Definitely.
Yeah, I could see that. Or it would be like, here's a shelf of 900 alcohols to choose from, and here is an emotion. Please figure that out.
Yeah, right.
One thing I think is interesting, and like if we compare this to other Cyberpunk games or other just like Cyberpunk as a genre, where it's you know, oppressive corporations and everything's shitty, and like the protagonist is usually like a gruff, like silent or relatively silent man who's kind of just like navigating it, ostensibly like a straight man.
Yeah,
it's really nice to see how these characters in this game are facing like oblivion with an almost joyful, maybe like nonchalant feeling to them, which I think is cool. Like, I'm glad that it's not like, oh, apocalyptic and I'm just gonna be a gruff dude. Like, I'm playing Observer right now. I really like Observer, but like the character's detachment sometimes is a little disconcert. It's like it doesn't connect with my personal feelings about how the world works. So I wanted to know if you guys felt any kind of connection, like tonally, to these characters compared to other Cyberpunk games.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Cyberpunk is pretty bleak. You know what I mean? Like, it's the high-tech, low-life, everybody's miserable all the time. And it was nice seeing, like, a level of joy, you know what I mean, from the characters. And, like, someone like Donovan, the bartender, who's, like, super into what he does and, like, thinks he's really fucking badass. And is totally open about that and will, like, tell you to your face that he feels that way. Plus, just the fact that there was kind of more of a queering of the narrative, you know what I mean? There was a lot more diverse characters too, and so it wasn't just like, yes, me, straight man, fall in love with pretty robot girl, which is all of them.
Right. I feel like, you know, the queer element is important because I feel like, you know, marginalized people in general already have like, you know, mental health issues or just issues like kind of getting through the day sometimes, and I think that this game embraces that. Like, I think a lot about the scene with the funeral where they're all kind of passing on the like gifts from the person who died, and they're just kind of like, all right, this is good, we're just gonna keep moving forward though, because that's all we can really do. And that felt like a queer, like a positive queer narrative even in the face of adversity. So
yeah, that was nice. So here we are with this Cyberpunk bartending game. We have a big bad corporation, Supercontinent Limited, right? And essentially we find out very early on that they, as part of their like mass network of, you know, implants and neural implants and these things that are helping people become better people, or becoming transhuman, or becoming, liked, or, able to cope with different aspects of reality. They have created this basic system that's going to change the way that everybody feels. It's going to control it. It's going to make people happy, right? That's kind of the most bottom line of information that we get. And so we're introduced to Donovan, the bartender, and okay, so nobody's character name was said out loud. Brandice?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Sure.
Brandies?
Him.
I don't...
Brandois. So we're introduced these two characters, one of whom is an information broker and the other of whom is like a revolutionary. And, through some very tropey cyberpunk exploring the past by ways of neural networking, we find out all this information, and we have a new robot friend, and this is kind of where the game sort of picks up, right?
Correct.
So, talk to me about the first moments for you guys, because, we get a lot of story right in the beginning. We start at the end, so we see Brandice falling from the supercontinent building and being like, well, I guess this is how I'm gonna die, before we roll back into the past and kind of see, start to see how he got to that point. And the first mini game that we're really set with is the mini game of, what was her name? Akara, I think.
Akara 184.
Yeah, so Akara, at a pottery wheel, making implants to put into people, to make them happy or content or whatever. So,
or gain more followers on Twitter.
Yes. Yeah, this game was very like it. Like, I think at one point a character was like, "I haven't logged into my Steam account in years." It was very self-aware.
Did that game did it control? Okay, just speaking purely mechanically, did you guys feel like you had a decent time, kind of what's the proper term here, lathing? Using the lathe to create these implants, because I honestly got stuck on this both on the PC and on the Switch, just trying to make it work correctly, and I'm wondering if I'm the only one who had that issue.
I definitely at first did not know what I was doing, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me that I have to carve this precisely? And then I don't know why, but on the third one it just clicked with me, and I was like, oh, okay, it's not actually as hard as I think it is. And it doesn't have to be as precise, but it still has to be kind of precise. It was weird figuring out which tool that you had to use, and you had to figure out where to use it on the shape to make specific shapes. And it was, I will say, it's actually pretty difficult at first when you're just like, I don't know how the fuck to make this shape. Even when the shapes at first are not that, complex. I think the most complex one was the Hierophant or something. I don't know. Yeah, these clay shapes, augment shapes, have the weirdest names. But I got it maybe on my, like I said, on my third one, it kind of clicked, and I was like, oh, okay, these are what these tools do, and this is how I can do it, because the first two took me forever to get it perfectly, because I wasn't using the correct tools, and I was trying to MacGyver it with the incorrect tool. But Rebecca, did you find trouble doing these, or?
I thought it was fine on the Switch. It took me a little while to figure out the different I guess chisel tips. Because I started off doing the first one or two with just one, not really realizing that it was meant to be hey, this shape is for this tool and this shape is for that tool, etc. So, but I don't know. I found on the Switch, I thought it was okay. I did appreciate that they didn't make you do too many of those, because I did kind of start to think to myself, is this the whole game? I don't know if I can do this.
I'm glad you had that same thought, because I was playing it and I'm like, man, I hope this is just one small mini game, because I was it's kind of introspective and fun, but we start with this narrative momentum that immediately gets lost by doing the lathing, and I'm just oh gosh, right. Let's get to this, let's do some work here.
Yeah, it definitely was, I'm guessing, really supposed to be, I mean, it's a narrative set piece, obviously, because it introduces Iridian.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, I don't know how to pronounce her name.
Yeah, it introduces her and sort of her mission, the Proxima people. It introduces Akara. It introduces kind of what Supercontinent's bread and butter was. You know what I mean? So it's good for that reason. And And I don't know.
I feel like she could have come a lot sooner than what was going on. So
because you do 2 rounds on the lathe, don't you?
Well, yeah,
because it's like you put in an implant. It's like somebody says, "I have a problem." You put in an implant, and then they come back and they're like, "Okay, that was good, but now I have this other problem," and then you have to create a new implant.
So you go through like 12
secondary issue.
Yeah, you go through like 12 people. So you go through 3 people, and then they come back around again, and then you go into the CEOs, and I think actually you go through the CEOs once. So maybe 9 people, excuse me. And then the last person is Ari. I'm just calling her Ari. It's Ari, and she like comes to life when you try to put an implant in her. And like that starts the whole story. So
yeah. So that's kind of a little bit of a brief intro to the thing, and then you end up spending the most amount of time actually with Donovan until the end, I guess.
Yes.
So I know that we spent some time talking about the bartending minigame. It was a little obtuse, right? One thing that I thought was very cool was the act of interrogating people based on how you make them feel. How was that for you both? Like, did you find that worked? Did you find that you struggled with it? Did you find that you had trouble getting answers out of people? I felt like I did really well, but then I was also kind of suspicious of like, can you do bad? So I know, Tyler, you were saying that you felt like you had trouble with it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what does that mean in this universe? I don't understand. Like, I'm interested to hear like what your experience was like, to know how those outcomes really worked.
So So we kind of talked about it a little bit, but making the drinks is difficult at first, So through that tutorial, I think your first person you're like kind of interrogating, whatever, just is Brandice, and mixing the drink and like hitting the emotion wasn't difficult. Like in the grand scheme of things, mixing the drinks and everything wasn't that difficult. But then the difficult part was getting that emotion, and then or choosing which emotion to go for first. And then once you've chosen that emotion, then asking questions that you need to get the answers to while having that emotion. Because some emotions, or some questions, if you ask them and you don't have the right emotion, if the person's not in the right mood, they won't answer it, or like they'll answer it, but you won't get an answer from it, because you have the little pocketbook where you have like objectives saying like, oh, who is super continent, who is a CEO, what is memory, neural augmentation, what is whatever, you have these questions that you're trying to answer while interrogating these people. And if you give them the right drink or give them the wrong drink and then ask the wrong question, you won't get the answers to the questions that you need. So I think there was 12 or 10 questions. I only got like 4. I only answered 4, and then the story progressed.
You can get to the end of the game and not have the official answers to everything.
Yes, and so that final sequence that we have, which we'll go into depth through later, but like that one, I had to do a lot of legwork because I didn't have a lot of answers. So it was just So doing that was difficult. And then on top of that, to compound on like my failure that I just had with this person, then Akira came in and was like, I'm going to make a game and I'm going to quiz you on what you think that person is like personally, or what their goals and hopes and dreams and desires are. And I'm like, okay, great. Thanks. Quiz me. 10 questions. Here we go. And I literally got like 4 out of 10 every time. I'm just like, oh, okay. I think I did it. I won once because it's the first fucking quiz, and she's like, well, this is the first quiz, so I'll let you do it again. And like, even though I failed the second time, she was like, well, this is the first quiz, so I'll let you go again. So I literally did that quiz like 8 times the first time.
Oh god.
And I know, that's what I'm saying, is like, I was like awful. I was like, how the fuck am I not getting this? And I was like, I'm not going to look this up because I got 4 out of 10, and then I got 6 out of 10, and then I got back down to 5 out of 10. And it was like, okay, I finally got 7 out of 10, and I was like, okay, I passed. Give me the fucking blue pill, which...
God.
For people who don't know, the blue pill is like a memory reset thing where like if I do fuck up on a question, it'll wipe their minds and like I can then retry the process. But I actually never ended up using the blue pill. So, but yes.
I never used the blue pill either on like the times that I earned it. But I had a very different experience from you. And I thought I was kind of just cheesing my way through it. I finished the game with like 9 out of the 10 like objectives that Dominic is, I believe, is his name that he's trying to accomplish.
Donovan.
Oh, yeah.
Donovan. Sorry, my mistake there.
That's okay.
And like I was kind of just choosing like, so throughout the game I was like, what's the most positive emotion I can elicit from these people? And that generally worked for me. Except for one time I was like, maybe I gotta like switch it up a little bit. And then I chose like the depression or question for the second one, or the anxiety. I can't remember the exact emotion name, but for the second person I chose that. And then she kind of like started recoiling and being like, well, I don't want to tell you anything. And I was like, oh fuck, I gotta go back to positive emotions. And like just kind of playing it that way seemed pretty straightforward and simple for me, which was, I didn't realize you could do that poorly in it, which is pretty intense.
Yeah.
How did you do, Rebecca?
I did really well, actually. Like kind of unexpectedly well.
Bartender over here.
I didn't quite get at first the idea that you should switch drinks. So it always prompts you once you ask a question to like serve another drink instead of sort of prying further. And so for the first two, the first one at least, Diana, I think was her name.
Yes.
The engineer that worked at a supercontinent. With her, I just picked an emotion and just asked her all the questions. And then that was it. And then once it got more to like I spent a lot of time with Naima the lawyer, like using the sort of amnesia thing on her and like trying different drinks on her. And that ended up turning into a really long, complex sequence where she gives you a lot of information.
Oh, damn, really?
Like, so like she's the one that told me about giving pink tequila to was his name Edgar? Not
Edgar.
Ethan. Edgar. I want to call him Ethan. To Edgar because he got like really crunk at a Christmas party for Supercontinent on pink tequila. So like, oh yeah, just give him that if you ever want him to go hog wild. So like that kind of stuff was really cool, and I was able to sort of sit and play it as like a real strategic game, and I really liked that. And to be honest, the Akara quiz afterward was my favorite part of the game, because it was so unexpected. So when she came in and was like, "Human learn by play. Let me ask you a series of 10 questions," I just thought like, "Oh shit, it's gonna be like reading comprehension." And then it was like, "Is this person attracted to you? What is this person afraid of?" And then I was like, "Oh shit! Like, would this person commit murder? Would this person commit murder for their company?" You know what I mean? Like, I thought it posited a lot of really interesting questions that forced you to really read into conversations in a way that I thought was interesting and meaningful. Although the one thing I will say is that I'm not sure how they were graded. Like, I'm not sure how they were graded because there are instances where Akara asks you ethical questions that I don't know if they can have a right or wrong answer. Like, you have an instance where you talk to this woman who is in the marketing department for Supercontinent. Yeah, Larissa. And so Akara says to you, "Is marketing inherently evil?" And then you can say like, yes, or no, it can be done ethically and here's how, or, no, it's perfectly fine. You can market. People have to make up their own minds. And so for a question like that, like, is there a wrong answer? Is Akara saying there's a wrong answer? You know what I mean? So like, there was a couple instances where I was not sure, because I never got a perfect score on one of those, but I passed all of them. So I know that I got some answers wrong, but it's like, did I pick a wrong moral question?
So
I don't know.
I'll tell you this, since I looked up the answer because I got so frustrated with this.
Yes.
Like, this is after the game. Like, I totally played all the way through without looking up any spoilers for it. Then after the game, I was like, what the fuck were those class questions? Because I loved the quizzes. I loved how, like you just said, Akira, like, totally did a deep dive on what just happened and, like, asked you some really deep questions about society and like the bigger grand scheme of things and like just human psyche in general. So she'll ask 9 questions about the patron, and usually it pertains, like, let's take Larissa because she's my favorite person. But the marketing director, she asks some questions about marketing and about Larissa, and if she like, what's Larissa's greatest passion? And you're like, well, she likes marketing. the last question, the 10th question that Akira asks in any quiz, it's always like there's no right answer. There literally is question 10 is there's no options. So you get one question right. They just count it as right.
Okay.
Automatically. So like at the very worst,
that question was always the moral one, right?
Yeah, that's always the moral one because there's no right or wrong answer. Because what happens is those questions are, and we're kind of like getting deeper into the spoilers here, but I mean, those questions are Akira's way of viewing the world if she were to reshape it using what is it called? MNA?
Yeah, there was that, and then there was SPW, which was the
SPW.
social psyche warfare.
Right. So if, because there's a point in the game where Donovan's like, Akira, if things go to shit, like, if you had a chance to, like, reshape the world, this is how you should do it. Or she's asking Donovan, like, if you had a chance to reshape the world, like, how would you do it? And so those questions at the end, question 10, those are shaping Akira's, like, influence on the world. So, like, if she were to... If SPW gets away from everyone and becomes this huge evil thing, she could, like, shut it down and, like, remake it in Donovan's image. So whatever you answer is supposedly what the world goes on to be, or what SPW goes on to be. So, like, there's no, like, real right or wrong answer with those. But anyway, you can continue.
So that, I think, brings up a really interesting point, and I kind of figured we would end up spending a lot of our time bouncing around and talking about themes and the way that they were portrayed, but I think that is something that I've struggled with walking away from the game. Something that I don't know if I liked about it was the fact that I feel like it did not provide a lot of opportunity to be morally gray. You know what I mean? So it kind of gave you the option to sort of pick a bunch of things and say, like Tyler in the example that you were giving about how, you can say to Akara, like, hey, this is what my dream MNE thing would be. And you can say, like, people shouldn't rape, people shouldn't kill, people shouldn't commit suicide, or they should, whatever.
Right.
It still feels very reductive in a way. And then I feel like that sort of compounded with the ending of, I mean, and this is obviously the spoiler, but of her coming out and being like, haha, it was me all along, was just like, oh, okay. That's it then, I guess.
Right.
And I don't know. I guess I was expecting it to make less strict judgments, you know what I mean? Because even at the end, Akara parrots back to you like, well, Donovan said that he would do this, and he would do this, and he would do this, and so I'm going to go with that for 10 years and figure out if that's utopia.
Right.
Goodbye. Like, what? I don't know. I know, Olivia, that you mentioned feeling kind of weird about it.
Yeah, it seems like Akara makes some logical leaps, and I guess one of the questions I was left with was like, okay, Akara is this, like, connected AI, but, like, why, why is Donovan so, like, why is his opinion so important? And, like, it seems like Akara's, perspective is, like, a little controlling and maybe, like, an evil AI. It just seems like the actual intent of the AI seems strange to me. Like, it didn't make a whole lot of logical sense. And then some of the questions presented, like you said, where it's like things that I would think are intrinsically bad, like when we're talking about rape or murder or suicide, with some caveats like in there, like I think generally we would all count those as societal bads, or like depression, long-term clinical depression. I was expecting more questions like similar to what the marketing question was, where it's like, hey, is marketing ethical? Like, hey, is capitalism ethical? Like, is it ethical for a mega corporation to own, like, the entire world? Which is kind of the situation we're dealing with in this game. And I guess I just kind of wondered, like, why that wasn't tackled, And I wonder who the audience in mind for this game is, because I feel like things like depression and anxiety, at least in the circles that I hang out with, like, there's a more nuanced conversation that can happen around that stuff. Besides just being like, well, would you get rid of it or would you keep it? What are you going to do? Are you a bad person? Or are you going to, like, be controlling? Tell me.
Right.
Yeah. And, like, what does it mean to feel, like, what is like, it asks a lot of questions about, like, what is happiness really? And, I think, so, okay, so somebody please explain this part to me. So in the end, when you're playing as Brandis and you've done cold calls to everybody who works at Supercontinent, because that, I don't even know, because that was a very weird depiction of how corporations work, is just executives calling each other in the middle of the night about whatever. But barring all that, once you have this, like, you do all these things, you have this fail safe up and you're gonna like unleash it on the world and we're gonna end SPE forever, etc., etc. And then Radhika, the CEO, calls you and is like, hey, I've been watching you. Don't think you should do that because actually it's been out there for weeks. And did you not notice that you're the best version of yourself? Because I took away all your fear and your anxiety and...
Wait, so we have to talk about this because what I chose at the end
Did she not call you and tell you that? Because I was confused by that.
So she called me.
Oh, shit.
And Donovan's like, don't pick... So, you know, again, spoilers for all this, but Donovan, the phone rings, and Brandis...
I'm gonna rename everybody in this.
Boris.
Ethan,
Brandice
Boris.
is now Boris. Anyway, so Brandice is like, oh, I'm gonna answer that phone. Like, I want to see who it is. And it's like your decision as a player to answer the phone or not. Donovan's like, don't answer it. Anyway, so I answered it. And it's Radhika, who is this 13-year-old girl running the CEO, who is like kind of half your mission also to find out who the fuck she is. And like, she supposedly killed the previous CEO of the company and blah, blah, blah. It's Cyberpunk dystopia world. And she talks to me and she's like, hey, I don't think you should be, I want you to listen to me. And I'm like, hang up. And I'm like, no, bitch, that's nice, but I'm going to hang up right now. And she's like, no, you don't. And like, I hung up on her and then like I installed the thing.
God.
And then like everything shut down. So I don't know. I didn't listen to Radhika's story. So I would love to hear what she says to you.
Yeah. So if you choose to pick up the phone and continue to talk to her, she basically explains and tells you that SPE has already been live for weeks. And that essentially the fact that you were able to do all this stuff and get to the point that you were at is because of the fact that your any kind of anxiety and fear had been suppressed.
I see.
And so, like, and anger and all of that had been suppressed this whole time. And Radhika tries to explain to you that she feels like SPE is not about controlling how people feel, but it's controlling people's reactions based on fear, because she believes that fear is the motivation for, like, hate crimes and genocide and, like, horrific things in the environment and, like, you know, how we could possibly progress as a society if we were not crippled by our fear. And so if you kind of fight her on it, she's sort of like, I'm going to turn it off. And then you, like, go into panic spirals immediately.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you go into panic spirals immediately, and then you, like, snap out of it because you have this conversation with Donovan, and he's like, it's okay, you're fine, like, we're there, and we did it, whatever, etc. And then that whole sequence with Akara, where she comes out, and she's like, I'm sorry, Hal, I can't do that for you, except there's 10 of her. That happens, and so I was confused because it was like, SPE is on, but it was not on, but they could turn it off, but then they don't turn it back on for Brent, and I was like,
yeah,
and I'm not...
I thought the whole...
What?
I thought the whole way that SPW worked was, like, based on, I know that he had, like, brain control shit in him or whatever, but it seemed like the ability to indiscriminately turn it off and on wasn't available, generally. And then also, like, for its ability to, like, even affect people who didn't have any enhancements or whatever. It just seems like, there's...
it was, like, social...
Right, yeah, it was, like,
warfare.
the neuron, whatever, like, the neuron mirroring thing that they were talking about. It just seems like, hey, here's some hand-wavy magic to make it think, like, you are the bad guy for turning this off. Like, it just seemed like a Hail Mary at the end to be like, well, actually, SPW is the good thing. Don't you know? Like, rather than having...
I mean, isn't that what the whole game is about, though? You're supposed to be, like, finding out all about this SPW and, like, preventing it from happening because you don't want... Like, yes, depression is bad, but like Donovan's saying, you know, or argues, I should say, he's like, yeah, depression is bad, but, like, people need it. People need depression to, like, so that they can know happiness. And, like, even if you have depression for a month and you turn it off, like, it's still... You're still altering human subconscious or psyche in that sense, and like it's not real. Like you need, like, anyway.
It seems like that whole conversation about like, is it ethical to modify someone's brain is like the, you know, like that's the crux of the story. Like it seems like it's kind of like your first revulsion at like, okay, can we like change the psyche of a society? Like I think that's what everyone expects is like, oh, I feel a little revolted by having this much control. And then the game is constantly trying to be like, well, you should do this because X, Y, and Z, because rape's going to go away, because the depression's going to go away.
Right.
And like, I just feel like the game, it already made that point consistently about like, hey, here's this good thing, and then to have this like hand wavy kind of like, oh my god, you're getting depression cycles now because we turned it off, welcome to hell because you made this bad choice, that it weakened the statement, in my opinion, like, that the game was trying to make.
I agree, because I think it also had the opportunity to engage with the core conceit of, so Donovan, I mean, and everyone, but Donovan is out trying to stop a corporation from controlling how people feel by controlling how people feel with the drinks that he makes. Like, that's the very key aspect of who he is. That's his superpower. Right. And, like, that was the thing that drew Akara to him, because she says, you know, he's a very rare person. He is an agent of chaos. He's not superhuman, but he believes that he is, and that's, like, enough to give him this power to, you know, control the fates of other people, because he influences and interrogates people by creating these drinks that tap into their emotions. And, like, it's kind of at a very surface level stated like, oh, well, I do this thing and maybe it's not ethical, I don't know, but it's like there's no introspection about being like, you know, if I'm saying that this mega corporation is wrong for trying to rid the world of depression, then maybe what I'm doing by making a lawyer have a panic attack at a bar is also kind of wrong too.
So wait, did you have the conversation with Akira about this? Because she totally talks to me about it. Because I was kind of like in the middle. I was like, I mean, SPW is good, but only in like moderation. Like, don't get rid of depression all the way. Let people kill each other, because like that's a moral choice. And Akira like called me out on my bullshit, and she's like, well, you say this other thing that you want SPW that's good over here, but then you're like, let people kill each other over here, and like that's a little conflicting and hypocritical, don't you think? And I'm like, and she mentions like, well, you are here, the bartender, mixing drinks for people, and you're influencing their will or whatever, so their emotions. So like, don't you think that's also kind of like what, like literally what you just said? Did you guys have that conversation, or was that just for me, or?
I had a similar conversation when you're going through like the 10 questions of like, oh, should we, like if I was going to run the world, like with the fail safe thing that came up. So is that the conversation you're talking about, or is there a separate conversation that I somehow missed?
So she says it's definitely the fail safe one, because that's when she asks you all the questions about rape and homophobia and like sexism and murder, and how like Donovan would want the world to be. That's when she says like, well, you're being hypocritical. I can't remember if then she goes on to say, well, you're the one also influencing people with the spirits. I feel like it would tie in at that point in time. It could have been different time in the game though. Like it might have been when Ghost was there. I don't know. I don't remember, but I specifically remember her saying, or maybe it wasn't Akira, maybe it was Ghost saying, hey, well, you're here influencing people's emotions, and yet you're going after this corporation for influencing people's emotions as well. So like, where do you stand, dude? Are you for it or are you against it? But I do remember this happening in the game at least once.
Okay.
Because I
guess I.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I guess I don't really remember it totally, and so I guess my hope would be that it would engage on a larger level than a character being like, "What's up with that, bro?" At the end. You know what I mean?
Right. I definitely agree. And I feel like some of the, because, you know, I think this gets into like a personal ethical question, but I'm like, okay, if it's one person acting unethically, you know, like taking advantage of people, like for some reason that just sits better with me than like having a mega corporation with no real representation that also has like the government involved. Like, and that was the part that I wish was interrogated a little bit more. Like, I feel like there's a story about like, you know, oh, this could only work if like we had the resources of a government or the resources of a corporation behind us. Like, and that's why this is important. Like, I feel like that point is never raised, and it's just kind of uninterrogated throughout the entire story.
Yeah. And you can make the argument too that what Donovan has is like it's like a gift or a talent. It's natural. You could even equate it to like, what if he wasn't serving drinks? What if he was just fucking making art? You know, like what does that say about artists then who influence everyone culturally in society? Like, oh, you know, should they go after corporations? But corporations are, like you were saying, on a massive scale, and it's not just one person. Even if one person can reach 1 million people, it's not like corporations doing it with ulterior motives behind it. Anyway, Rebecca, you were saying something.
well, I think to that end too, there's also a level of almost like consent happening. You know what I mean? So that's talked about a little bit early on in the game about like, you know, is it okay for a company to do this to people without them knowing? And that again is not really explored too much beyond that. No. I feel like, but when it comes to Donovan, like some people know that he has this power and go to him because they want it. You know what I mean? Like they're like, do this and I want it. And then there are some people who don't know that he's doing it behind the scenes. You know what I mean? And so like with the lawyer, with Namia, you know, she like does not want to drink at first, and he's like, no, like I'm gonna force this on you, like just, you know, like I'm just gonna give this to you based on our conversation, like I know you didn't tell me what you wanted, but I still can do this, you know what I mean? So like that felt very forced and unethical, compared to other people who come in and they're just like, hey man, I know you do this thing, pour me some of that sweet stuff, right, or whatever. And that is not really engaged with either.
Right. I think one of my favorite characters, like no surprise, is Larissa. I really liked that whole like conversation you have with her, and then just kind of like go through all of the different options. And I think that speaks to your point, Rebecca, about how some people are like just in it for the thrill. They want to get the emotions and feel like this full spectrum that maybe like she talks about not being able to cry. Like no one's seen her cry since she was a teenager. And, like, she's in it for that experience, you know, like, being able to access that part of herself.
That's why I love Larissa, because she knew what she was there for, she knew what she was about, and she was like, hit me up, Donovan, like, make me feel. And, like, everyone else was under the radar, in a sense, didn't know that they were being influenced, and, you know, and that kind of alludes, honestly, to me, it read to me as spiking someone's drink to, like, date rape. You know, and it was a little like, but I mean, it's a game. It's, you know, things I just kind of like waved away, whatever. But like at the same time, it's like, no, dude, what you're doing is kind of fucked up a little bit.
Yeah.
On the conversation of Larissa, because I think she's an interesting character, I feel like it's worth bringing up what the game did to her and what I think was the big controversy about this game when it came out. Because, you know, she's a character, she comes in and she's like, hit me up with the good stuff, she tells you stuff, whatever. When you access her file later, when you're playing as Brandis on the computer, they basically are like, she's like totally above board. You know what I mean? Like, of anybody in this situation, she's not the bad guy. And yet there is another character, another C-level executive who uses her dead name as his computer password. And it's like,
right. And that would be Edgar, right? That we're talking about Edgar, right?
It was, it was.
Because it's Edgar's the one who's in love with her, right?
I believe so, yes. So, you know, the developers have come out and been like, you know, we have queer people on our team, we have trans people on our team. You know, we made this decision because we wanted to illustrate the kind of character that Edgar is. But, you know, I kind of knew that knowledge going in, and then when I actually played through that sequence, it's a very small sequence, but to me it does not feel earned. Because if that had not been in the game, it wouldn't have been any different. So I feel like that was not fair to do to Larissa.
Yeah. I think I said on a previous podcast that they might have like edited out or did something different to it, you know, but they actually had not. And I might have missed something. Because I knew that there was a trans character within this game and, like, you know, all the hubbub surrounding it. I didn't know who it was. When Larissa walked in, she kind of gave off, you know, the almost like flamboyant, like she's a queer person. And I'm like, okay, it might be her. But I must have missed some dialogue because, again, I'm a really bad bartender. So I didn't get that she was trans or anything while serving her drinks. Later, after playing the game, I like researched some stuff, and apparently there's some dialogue where she mentions, I guess you get her horny, right? And she mentions that she like went to go see this guy with like multiple dildos or something. I have no idea, and I'm like,
wasn't
even
that
if she's...
Edgar? I thought like was
that Edgar?
Yeah, he was talking about how he had multiple removable dicks. I thought that was him. Maybe I like putting two people together.
Again, whoever says that they have like multiple removable dicks, I didn't get that line of dialogue because I didn't ask the right question with the right emotion. So Larissa, I found out like Larissa was the one, like truly, like indefinitely, by that scene at the end where I'm pretending as Brandis and I'm cold calling people for information. So that was how I learned how she was trans. And so that experience to me kind of rolled over, since I knew about it prior, a little gentler. Like I just knew it was coming, or like I knew to anticipate it. And I was like, okay, here it is. But I can totally understand why everyone, or why people are disheartened and a little outraged and mad about how the developers went about this puzzle, in a sense, the solution to the puzzle. So
I guess the part, because Tyler, I had a similar experience to you where I wasn't made aware of her trans status until like that moment. And I knew there was a trans character, but I didn't put it together that it was her until then. And I feel like that, I understand the developers' intentions of trying to make it so that, oh, hey, this guy's an asshole, that's why he's using your dead name. So like, we want to really like enforce that. At the same time, it doesn't feel like her transness is ever like a major theme of the story, besides like this one zinger that's like, hey, yo, she's trans, like look at this asshole. Like, I don't feel like we're similar to what Rebecca was saying. I don't feel like that's earned. Like there are other ways to illustrate that he's a dickhead, and it's kind of already hinted at through a lot of dialogue. And like in the beginning when they're talking about the AI being smarter than him at coding, and it's like, oh, we're here for your creativity, and it's like he's already a jaded dick, and so like I don't think we needed that.
You know who Larissa reminded me of? She reminded me of the gorilla Gory from Agresutsko. I can't remember how to pronounce it, but that Netflix, oh yeah, she reminded me of that power executive in that anime on Netflix, and I loved Larissa.
I could see
totally
that.
Like she's there to have fun, and she's like large and in charge, and she like does not give a fuck. Like that's her. But anyway, so I love Lori. She's my favorite character. But yeah, it's like I said, Olivia, I didn't get her trans status either until the very end, and it was like, okay, and like I said, I'm just really repeating what you said, but it wasn't like a big flag, like that was the main theme of the whole game. It was just a quiet thing that had happened. So,
and like I want representation, like I want characters to exist that are queer or trans or whatever, that don't, like, the whole access of their story is not dependent on that. And that's what I really liked about a lot of the other characters in this. And I like that Larissa was like dynamic and flamboyant and like had more to herself than being a sex fiend, and more to herself than being like, a high level marketing executive. I just don't feel like we ever get that true payoff. Like what does her being trans have to do with the story? Like we're all saying, it doesn't get paid off. And that's just to clarify my point. Like, it's okay to have trans people who are just trans, and that exists, but in this story to have it just like that final, like, fuck you, just didn't feel great to me.
I hate to say this, but I'm gonna say it, so stop me if this is bad. But
oh no.
Okay, well, here we go.
I'm getting my cross ready.
Capitalism, no. So the thing to me also about Larissa is that, the act of sort of outing her as a trans character was done in like the most negative way possible. Mm-hmm. I'm worried that sometimes this choice is made to be like, we have a trans character. Look, there she is. We even mention it in the dialogue, sort of. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like a way to be like, look, we have a trans character, but also we're gonna make another character look bad at her expense. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm wondering if that piece had not been in there, would someone have come and said, hey, we would like to see more trans characters in your works? And they would have to be like, it was Larissa the whole time. I don't know. Like, I think that also precludes needing a better way to handle it, because either it's like really negative, or you have to go back and be like, actually, it was always there. Representation was there the whole time. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think people haven't figured out how to meaningfully communicate
that. You can't just JK...
This is a way to not do it.
Yeah, you can't just JK Rowling things or Marvel things, Like, oh, Dumbledore is gay all these years later. Okay, great. Like, why couldn't you just do that? I think even in the movies recently, it was like, Dumbledore is not gay in the fucking Griswold, whatever, the latest.
I thought that they had like some kind of erotic, highly sexual relationship. Isn't that what she just said?
Do you guys not like Harry Potter? Where do you fall in the Harry Potter scale here?
Okay. Love Harry Potter. loved Harry Potter, okay, read all the books, devoured all the movies, was here for it, and then J.K. Rowling, like, opened her big fat mouth, and I was like, And at first it was okay, like, okay, great, oh, Dumbledore, he's gay, okay, cool. And then it was just like, she said all these other things, and I'm like, what are you doing?
And then Hogwarts students poop in the hallways and magic it away.
Yeah. They just vanish it, their poop. It's just there, but it's invisible. Do you not have... I'm sorry, you have the fucking Chamber of Secrets, but no one fucking uses the toilet?
Tyler, that was installed after the fact. Yeah. Come on, Tyler.
I don't fucking
care. Get on Pottermore more.
And then you could say... So
what's
then,
your Patronus? What's your wand? What's your house? What's your secret erotic relationship with a teacher?
Oh my god. And then, you know...
She's got one for you.
If we want to do the more recent... Oh my god.
She does. It's J.K. Rowling.
We're totally dragging J.K. Well, you know what? Now we're not sponsored by J.K. Rowling or any of her future endeavors. Sorry, Pottermore fans.
Do I have to put her on the wall of shame in our Discord?
It's true. She might be our next bot. Next to Randy and Cliffy B.
We've opened up a giant can of worms here in terms of representation.
We're going to get so much hate mail. But I mean, it's the same thing. It's like Disney also did the same thing with, you know, the recent Beauty and the Beast one. He's like, Gascon's fucking
LeFou.
Yeah,
LeFou.
He's gay.
And
you're like,
gay the whole time.
Okay. Or most recently, fucking Endgame with Marvel, and that I'm not spoiling anything. It's just, you know, there's a scene in the Endgame. Avengers Endgame, where Captain America, is talking to these people in this like support group, and one of the guys casually mentions like, "Yeah, I went on a date and he seemed interested, and I want to go back out with him." And like that was it. And Marvel came out like, "Yeah, look at our character. We got a gay character in there." And it's like, no, bitch. Like literally, there are superheroes that are gay that you're not letting be gay. And you just like put...
Does the character even have a name?
No, he doesn't. He's guy number 2.
It was like a big character. Yeah, it wasn't anything.
It was literally just enemy. And we're getting off topic about it, but I mean, you know, it's...
Yeah, I think Red Strings Club does, like, even in this, like, marginal token representation of, like, a trans person, I think it does a little better than, you know, J.K. Rowling or,
definitely, yes.
Yeah.
I will say that. It definitely
The bar
does,
is pretty low.
Yes. So,
unfortunately.
I think just to speak to your point, Rebecca, about how, you know, like, it's either don't include the trans character or have a trans character somewhere in the story just to have some kind of representation. I think that most people who care about these kinds of things, like, aren't looking for, you know, like, oh, I just want, you know, Captain Marvel to be trans and she was trans the whole time. And that, like, isn't that cool in like this Marvel story? Like, I think they're looking for some kind of like substantive story with a trans character in it. Or, like, any, like, you know, Donovan could have been trans. Like, that could have just been, like, a throwaway thing that they talk about. Yeah. And it would have been fine.
Sure.
Like, I think that there are...
Because Donovan and Larissa have had this really long relationship. Larissa could have literally been like, yeah, remember, you know, back in the old days when we used to, like, get together? And, like, it could have been a really, like, like, a chill thing to, like, you know, no big fireworks or anything. It's just, like, a casual conversation that they had. And just, like, okay. But it just, they went about it in like a really different way. So anyway, sorry to cut you off.
No, I agree. I think it's just like, I think there are ways to do this respectfully in a way that doesn't involve like some kind of trauma to a trans person. And like, it just has to be done with care. And I think that, you know, reading I read the Waypoint response, like where they had this conversation with the developers about this. And I think that they are doing their best to be caring with this. I just think that it plays into a lot of harmful stereotypes that, you know, we've seen over and over again. And I wish that wasn't the case with this story, because I feel like that's the one, like, you know, black eye in terms of like queer representation that I can see in this. Because I'm really excited about everything else in it. Like, I'm really excited with how, you know, nonchalant the other characters are about being queer. How it's just like a thing. Where they live in a world with like gender, like there was some throwaway line about like, oh, you have like gender implants. That isn't ever really explained, but I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like, I'm like happy that exists in this world, but to just fuck it up for like nothing, for no real payoff, just kind of seems like a real bummer.
And there's, I think, a lot of exchanges of love, which I thought was really interesting. So there's a lot of characters telling each other that they love each other, and sometimes it's qualified as being like, well, I like you platonically. But, you know what I mean? Like, you see a robot saying, I love humans. Like, I love you. I think you're great. Like, you see people telling it to each other. You see people who have just met telling it to each other. So there is an inherent queerness in the storyline of just like, we are all people, we're all experiencing these things together, we're all sharing these stories. And that's why I think Larissa deserved better, because she's so great, and her introduction was really great. So a big piece that I wanted to kind of touch on was what came right after Larissa's interrogation, which was Irving. And that was a really fucking weird part.
This is all you guys. This is all you guys, because I did not get Irving, because I did not answer the quiz correctly.
Oh, that's
so
right.
I read up on him, but like I need to hear what you guys have to say, because this like is like what, like way out left field in the ballpark, as they say in sports games.
Olivia, did you get Irving?
I got Irving, and I'm interested.
Okay.
Just to kind of set it up, like Irving is this torturer. I don't know his official title.
Oh, I thought it was just like a
he's like a torture
kid.
informant.
Oh,
yes, and he you get him from like passing a test, and then somehow like by Akara opens like somehow gets him there, and then they decide to like play a game where you have to like guess his age. And if you get it right, you have to play Russian roulette. I got it right, so I don't actually know what the fail state is, but then you play Russian roulette with him. And I got I chickened out after the first one, and I was like, I gotta stop. This is scaring me too much.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
what happened with you, Rebecca?
So I got him. I also guessed his age, and then I did not chicken. I made him do the whole sequence of Russian roulette with me. And you get to the very end, and he shoots you, but it's a blank. And then he starts freaking out, and he's like, oh my god, like, you're crazy, man. Like, you wanted me to just shoot you? Like, how on earth could you have ever known that it was a blank? And it's to the point where it's so bad that Akara is like, I suggest you maybe don't let yourself get shot in the face right now. And so if you win the game because you let him, he does all 6 rounds and he doesn't kill you, he basically is like, I will torture anyone you want.
Ooh.
Who do you want me to torture? And he offers Diana, Naima, and Larissa as like, I will torture any of these people for you for information. But I chickened out and I didn't want him to torture anybody because I felt really bad. So I was just like, bye. And that was the end.
None of those characters deserve to be tortured. I wonder what happens if you torture them. Among that list, I would probably choose Nima, because she seems to have her emotions turned off or something. Like, she's very robotic. But like, no one deserves to be tortured. Like, these characters are just like cogs in the fucking corporate machine, you know? Like, okay, what does that do? And what information would you even gain from them?
Well, and at the same time, there's a throwaway line in there I think Donovan does when I think it's I'm interested to hear who you guys like put the implants into and like the C-level people. But I did one where like I put the rebellious like implant into, God, I'm trying to look up her name right now. She's like the COO. Joanna. And then like there is a conversation, I believe it's between Larissa and Donovan, where he's like, oh, I don't like to see any individual suffer. Like, corporations can go suck a fuck, but individuals matter to me. So then to have the option, I didn't torture anyone. Yeah. Like, but to have the option to be like, oh, torture this person. Like, what the fuck?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the intent was with that. Like, I would be curious to know if he would, like, if Irving would come back with information.
Because Irving's
like base.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
I was gonna say, Irving is offered to you as like a reward for getting the quiz right on, I think, Larissa. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's Larissa's quiz.
So it's like, why is your reward for getting Larissa's quiz correct to then torture her and or other people? It's like, why? I don't.
I'm guessing it was to set up a moral quandary. You know what I mean?
I guess.
But I don't know. Again, like, I don't think it was earned. And I don't know, because he does kind of say too, like, he was like, okay, well, if you need somebody tortured, you call me, you crazy badass. And then there's never a point at the rest of the story at which you can call him. Like, if I changed my mind and was like, actually, I need you to go talk to so-and-so. But Donovan gets like a throwaway line at the end when he's talking to Brandis, when Brandis is like in the hacking minigame, where he says something like, oh, well, I know a torturer, har har har.
Interesting.
I don't know. That was really weird.
It is very weird. I wish it wasn't that guy and it was like Ghost instead. You know, because Ghost was really, I think, the most interesting character. Like, I shouldn't say interesting, most mysterious character in this game. And his literal, like, he's so cool and mysterious, and he seems like he's way out there. Like, he's a god compared to you and, like, even the corporation, Supercontinent. And you get his only, like, purpose in the entire game is to give you the red and blue bottles. And then he's gone. And it's like, dude, are you going to help me out with the revolution? Or, like, what's your deal, you know?
Totally.
It also seems like Donovan was afraid of him.
Well, I mean, he should be, like, but like...
Right, and then he just was sort of like, hello, I'm here, please learn a new minigame.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. And then he's back again like, hey, also you can turn drinks now. Bye.
Yeah.
And then that was
I wish that you could, like, I feel like he should have been the reward for answering Lewis's questions correctly. And then you get to serve him drinks, and like he can tell you information, and or you can recruit him to your cause, which then changes the outcome of the ending of the game. Which I understand, super, you know, a lot of work on the devs do that, but I feel like it would have been a better story and or alternative to Irving or whatever his name is. So, and I want to know more about him.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, was the implication that he was kind of like he was trying to be a neutral party in the whole thing? I feel like he knew a lot of information, but he was just kind of like, I just know this stuff, but it doesn't really matter.
Right. I feel like Ghost is from a different draft of the story because he kind of just
Yeah, it does.
Sorry.
No, I just kind of feel that way. I agree with you.
Like Ghost kind of just rolls up and is like, hey, I'll get you some liquor. I also have teleportation powers, which I was super freaked out by when Ghost is just like teleporting in and also like, oh, using mind powers to bring things over. And then you see Brandis do it in the like hacking, like the phone endgame part. And I'm like, oh, I guess this is a part with augments. Like that's like the rules of Ghost and like augments and superpowers never really explained, which is fine, but it's also really jarring.
Right.
And it sucks because I was like, oh, I bet you Ghost is going to be some kind of informant, or like there's some larger story here that Ghost plays a role in, and then Ghost, unless I missed something really critical, Ghost's just like, hey, what's up? I'm out now. Peace.
Well, do you remember? So I don't know if you noticed this when you played the game, but I did when I was playing. When he walks into the scenes, he has this bubble, this blue, it's very light blue tinged bubble, like as if he has this anti like technology sphere around him that like disables all technology around him. And I wanted to know,
he's in like an eternal Faraday cage.
Yeah, basically, because like he walks in and like, you know, the whole like mood and atmosphere changes, right? Well, that's because you're like within his sphere of influence or whatever. And I mean, I'm just
and Akara can't sense him.
Exactly. And so like I'm picking, you know, straws out of a hat, but like that's why I thought he was going to be more important to this whole like overthrow the corporation thing, because he was unaffected by SPW, because Akara couldn't sense him, you know, and I thought he was going to play a major role, and I want to know more about him. Like, what is his deal? Why is he super powerful? You know, what's going on? Who is Ghost?
Right.
But
I think, Olivia, I think your point about this being like maybe a previous draft of the story is potentially the correct answer here, because you know, there's also like all the characters have some kind of augmentation. Like you could see it on Brandis, like even in the beginning when he's playing the piano, you can see it on the back of his neck, like it's out there, right? And even when Akara comes stumbling in the bar, they're like, what is this, just some like crazy implant fangirl, not realizing that it's actually a robot. And like they like reference a lot that people can't tell whether or not Akara is a human or an android. And then like at the very end, there's a little throwaway line about how Donovan has like an allergy to implants, like his body will naturally reject implants, so he doesn't have any. So like he's kind of identified as being sort of handicapped, basically. Like he has this bad knee and he can't walk and he can't really leave the thing, and like that's why he's at the bar all the time. And then all that stuff just kind of floats around in the ether, and that's it. Ghost is there, Donovan's there, and I don't really know. Like, it seems like that kind of concept was going to be more important.
Definitely. And I kind of feel like, you know, if we're thinking about like a Red Strings Club 2 or a prequel or something, or if this was like an episodic game, I kind of was thinking that's where like people like Ghost would fit in. Because I was just like, it just seemed so off the wall. Like, I understand that you want to, when you're telling a story, create a rich tapestry by like including details that, you know, maybe aren't super relevant, that are just there for it. But, you know, everything around Ghost is so menacing. It's kind of like Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
Like, you never get that payoff of like, okay, well, Ghost seems like a dangerous person, you know, rather than being like some kind of recurring villain or a character is like Tom Bombadil, where it's like, oh, we just take like a little like ghost break where it's like real spooky and scary, and then we kind of go back to the real story.
A literal actual live skeleton walks into the bar and hands you a cocktail shaker and was like, look at that, bitch, and then leaves.
Exactly.
And then that's it.
He lets you live.
That.
Because you serve him drinks so well, he lets you live. Like, that's my theory.
And then,
like,
and that's the other thing, too, is, like, he asks you to serve him a drink, and when you go to make him a drink, he has one emotion, and it's, like, in Latin.
I loved that, though. That was actually kind of cool.
So, like, he is totally an enigma, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Hope you liked it. The end.
One thing we haven't really talked about is, like, the music in this game.
It's so good.
And yeah, I was thinking a lot about Ghost, like, just because his music fucking rules. Like, as a spooky mood-setting piece, and I'm like, I wish, like, you know, a lot of the music is more, like, instrumental and, like, maybe a little, like, techno-y, at least from my recollection, and then you just get Ghost where it's, like, kind of a dirge, and I'm like, yes, give me this, like, terrible emotion.
The sound design in this game was really smart, because I really... I really liked the soundtrack, and I thought all the music was good, and I mean, I listened to, like, synthwave just normally, so
Same.
I guess that helps. But I thought this game was also smart in the times it did not use music. So there were times when it goes dead silent, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, shit just
and
got
I thought
real.
some of those moments were well done and unsettling. I like that.
Y'all, I just figured out something about Ghost, looking him up.
What?
Wait, is there stuff online?
Yeah, apparently there's an album titled Ghost, and it's like some like a real world thing. That's like this is a reference to. It's like, oh hey, it was crowdfunded, and he was allegedly a backer in this. So that may be why Ghost actually is in here.
Interesting.
Okay.
So they just put him in because he was a fan creation.
Something
that
like
would
that.
Make sense.
I haven't done all this. Is me just trying to be like, well, is Ghost in anything? So. You know, I can't speak to that 100%, but that would make it a lot more sense why they just kind of like parachute in this like mysterious character, and then like, okay, I will never touch him again.
Well, you know what? He's very mysterious.
So okay, so we have a lot of characters here, right? We have, like, you know, the kind of three ladies of I always want to call it supercomputer. It's supercontinent. I don't know why. But we have Diana, we have Naima, and we have Larissa, right? We have Ghost and Irving, which are like these weird one-offs. And then we have Dr. Coldstream, so Edgar, who I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about because I pink tequila'd him, and so I have no idea what he's like if you don't get him drunk off of his ass. So explain to me what happens if you don't get him drunk off of his ass, and then I will tell you what happens if you
Olivia,
do.
did you pink tequila him? Because I did not pink tequila. I didn't know how to make pink tequila, so...
I didn't pink tequila him either, and he seemed real talkative, even without the pink tequila.
Yeah, he's very, like, full of himself, and he's like, I'm this hot shit, and, like, it doesn't matter what information I leak to you or whatever, because I'm untouchable, is how he kind of like goes about himself, even when you're not using, I think one of his emotions is like pride or something, and even when you're not using pride and you're using like stress or fear, he's still very like talkative. So
okay,
Edgar's the person I got the most information out of. I mean, like, I got information out of Larissa, but, like, I, again, kind of mix and match wrong emotions with questions, and so, like, I got less out of her. Edgar, it seemed like no matter what I did, and, you know, I think he's the last person you serve, so, like, by then I kind of had, like, a better idea of what I had to do, but he told me basically everything. He answered, like, four of my questions, so...
Yeah, okay. So, I'm not really sure what the point of pink tequila was. Maybe just as, like, an Easter egg that Naima tells you, like, don't give him that because he got drunk at the Christmas party. Because so if you know the recipe for pink tequila because Naima gives it to you, kind of, it appears when you when you do your interrogation, it appears as, like, a drink option. So, it appears as one of his emotions. So, I just did that. And then the exact same thing happened, which was he told me everything. And it was like, yeah, whatever. Akara, like, is the one that controls M&A, and she raised Radhika, and blah, blah, blah. Like, so I assumed that was like, oh, I won. Oh, like, I had a thing. Like, I interrogated somebody, right? And I got this cool thing that made him tell me all the answers to my questions. And now I'm
thinking
you
still
maybe
got the cool thing, but I got all those answers as well, where it was just like...
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Well, I think so. I was, again, I looked all this up afterwards. And if you do pink tequila, you do get a little bit more information, or at least you got one more piece of information that I didn't get, that I again had to like find while being Brandis in the corporate office calling people. But beyond that, though, it's more like of an achievement thing, it seems.
Oh, there aren't even achievements on the Switch. So.
Oh, well, yeah, it's like an achievement on Steam.
Okay.
But like, yeah, it didn't seem like it was a huge deal. Apparently, like I said, it wasn't an option, and it wasn't an emotion option for me. So like Nima didn't give it to me, because again, I did terrible with her. So.
It's fine. I guess then, this game is called the Red Strings Club. And if you guys know the sort of lore of what the Red String of Fate means, it's right. It generally is this idea that, I mean, I think a lot of times it is related to marriage, like two people are tied, but it also relates to it, the concept of one thread joining a lot of people together for a reason. And so, I can kind of go with that, right? Because basically everybody you serve in the bar is like super critical to getting this mission done. Like no one else comes to the bar who's not important except Ghost, apparently. So essentially you just are like A, B, C, D, E, F, G in this line of interrogation of important people who will tell you answers to things that you need to know to complete this mission. And so that makes sense when it comes to something like the Red String of Fate. But then I think with instances like the pink tequila and Edgar situation, and then also just knowing that, like, even if you totally bumble your way through the whole game, you can still get all of the answers at the end when you're looking people up on the computer and talking to them and stealing their voices and stuff. The game really essentially pushes you to get to one conclusion. You know what I mean? And that is okay. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's hard. It's like, it's hard to make a game to have more than one ending, but at the same time, it also feels sort of like, so what? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So what? So, outside of maybe the experience with Irving, you know what I mean? I feel like we all kind of came out of this having a very similar sense of the information and what was presented in the story and the
Correct.
Players and the why, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you feel satisfied walking away from this? Like, do you feel like having all this information, do you feel like, yep, that was a story? Or do you feel kind of like,
I feel like the smaller moments are what made me like this story. Like seeing Donovan and Brandis like communicate and talk, and just kind of like the stories on the periphery. The actual main, like, ultra mega corporation taking over the world thing, it all felt really straightforward and simple in a way that I just didn't expect. Like, I honestly expected I didn't get all the information, I failed it, and I need to, like, go through it again. That's how I thought the story was going to resolve itself, because I just didn't play well enough, and that's really annoying. Like, if that was how it had worked, I would have been like, well, okay, I guess I'm not going to play this again. So I can understand why the developers decided to make it like, hey, no matter how bad you fuck up, you're probably going to get there. It'll just be a little harder at the end. At the same time, I kind of, I understand it, multiple branching options, multiple endings, that's just more resources put into something. I do feel like with this heavy emphasis on choice, though, that there was multiple outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought there would be multiple outcomes as well. I'll have to say, like number one favorite part of this entire game was actually the very ending where you're playing as Brandis cold calling people, because I had done so poorly, that part of the game I had to do a lot of puzzle solving. I mean, I feel like even if you have all the information, you still have to do puzzle solving regardless, but there's a few things that like I had to do extra because I didn't freaking know. Like I literally, the only thing I knew about Radica at that point was that she was young and supposedly she's in line to take over the corporation, and like that's it. But then like I had, when I was that last scene, I had like found out she was doing all this other stuff, and like she was raised by Akira, and all this other stuff. I, like when I was building her profile, that was my like top tier favorite part. The next part would be mixing the drinks. I thought that there was going to be a different ending based on different questions or outcomes that I was given throughout the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
And then to find out that it all just kind of actually merges into one point was a little disheartening. I felt satisfied overall. Like I'm glad that, like Olivia said, I did not want to go back through this game because I had failed some fucking dialogue because I'm awful at the game, to replay all the shit and then have to remember, like, well, what did I say last time? Well, I don't know. Let me select this option again and see what the same outcome or not.
Right.
I feel like this is a successful game overall because it does some interesting things, and it doesn't, what I'm trying to say, it doesn't make it difficult for the player to experience the whole story without feeling super bad about themselves. But I feel like, again, there's a lot more room to expand within this game. Again, Ghost. And like just maybe a few more like insights to characters. Like, why couldn't characters come in a second time around and like you serve them again and like maybe go into more information or something? I don't know. But I understand it's very straightforward and very like, this is the one linear storyline that we're talking about, and no other person's going to come into the bar. Just the people who matter are important. And
yeah,
so.
that is one. I mean, to be completely straightforward, I have one very big frustration with this game, and it is the fact that every single person has a freaking landline, and they're just sitting next to it waiting for you to call them.
Except for Larissa. She's the only one who doesn't pick up. And Brandis is like, yeah, it's the weekend, late at night. She's not going to call. Like, I wouldn't call. And like, that's it. That's the whole...
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
But everybody else is a flippin' loser. But I think that is something that I wish there was more of. You know what I mean? And that was more world building through talking to other people that weren't just the need to know basis part of the story. And so I was thinking a lot about Observer, and especially you, Olivia, because I know that you've been playing Observer, and I thought it was interesting sort of that you ended up playing that and this at the same time.
Yes.
But one thing I thought that Observer did in an interesting way was bring in people who were like kind of unrelated for some background. And not all of them have a huge part to play in the story, but there's like people that you could have a conversation with that are just like giving you context about what the hell is going on in the kind of greater world around you, and aren't necessarily tied into like the murder mystery that you have to sort of untangle.
To like point to an example of that I really liked was like Amir's like drug dealer contacts, like the like where you're like going back and kind of touching base with those people from the dream sequence, or not dream sequence, like Mind Jack sequence. And I guess I kind of, I understand this is a very like linear story, you get like in Red Strings Club, but I kind of wish that there was an option to go back and revisit some of those older people, or like call them in. Like we get this pill that I was so afraid to use, I never did use it. And I kind of wish that, I wish there was like 10 more, 10 more like drink making sequences than the whole last like 30 minutes of that game. Because I really did not like the phone number sequence.
Yeah, that was an interesting game split into those halves, and I think I really liked, of the two, I really liked the interrogation sequence. The phone piece at the end, I still spent like an hour. Like, I think I had a lot of the answers, but I still feel like I was in there for an hour just like...
Yeah. I was trying to
circularly calling people.
Yeah, cool, because I was trying to crack Karen open, and then the head of...
Karen from HR. I love that.
Yeah, I know. Karen from HR. The technical guy, the guy who's is it CTO? I don't know his stupid background, but he's IT guy. Francis, yeah, because there's two safe word protected files on the computer, and one is Edgar and one is Francis. And I was trying to get Francis to unlock, even though I had all my shit done, and I was like, I guess you can't just unlock him anymore. I don't know. Clearly, I must have. This is a dialogue option that's not available to me anymore, or a pathway that's not available to me anymore, because I did poorly on the interrogation parts at the bar. So I don't know if you can or not. I don't know. I haven't looked it up to see if you actually can get into Francis's file or what you would find in there. It seems like you would find almost everything because he seems to know basically everything. So
I don't remember if I got into that. I feel like it just came to such a slog at the end that I just kind of like, I don't know. I think at some point I just was like, whatever, and then kind of gave up. And then the game does that thing where it looks you in the face and says, "Here's the plot," and then ends.
You were the Red Strings Club all along.
Yeah,
we were the real Walking
the
Dead.
End.
Yeah, like I guess the ending is just such a bummer, you know. And I know endings are hard, but man, I wish we had some more like information, even like a post like, hey, here's what happened, you know, like I guess like that would actually probably give some weight to, you know, the story that they're telling, like after the fall of Brandis, to be like, all right, well, here's like the like consequences of your actions. So
right, and and they give you that choice as Brandis to either say to Donovan like, I love you so much, or it was Akara all along, and that's it. Like that's his last.
So what did you guys choose for like the endings or your dialogue options for the ending? Did you say I love you, Donovan, or did you say, hey, this is what's going on?
I said it was Akara.
Oh,
and then it didn't matter because he still said you're like the most important person I've ever met, and then he dies. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well at least I told him Akara was the bad guy, I guess.
And did you guys know that Olivia, what was your response? Did you say Akara too, or did you say...
No, I said I love you, because I
You guys are much nicer than I am. I was just like, I have to save the world.
No, I said I have to save the world too. I said, oh no, it's fucking Akara, like, kill her.
Okay.
Yeah, well, because here's why, because up until that moment, I didn't realize that Brandis and Donovan were boyfriends, or that they were seeing each other.
Oh, you didn't?
I don't know why it didn't register to me until the very end, and I was like,
did you... Well, did you get that scene, I guess, like, where, oh god, my brain is forgetting her name, horny lady who's trans, god
Larissa.
Damn it. Larissa. Yeah, Larissa talks about wanting to fuck him.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was the first thing where she's like, oh, like, let's fuck.
Yeah, because she was hot for Brandis, right?
I think she's hot for Donovan, and then Donovan's like, well, I'm with Brandis, so, and then she's like, well, I'll wear a strap-on if that's what you want.
I must have missed that then. Anyway, I guess it kind of came as a shock to me, or like I figured it out, and then I was like, well, realistically, if they're together, like he fucking knows that Brandis loves him, Donovan. So like it's fucking Akira, and you already know that I love you, bitch. So bye. Like I don't know. As I'm falling from a fucking 10 million story building. So yeah,
that's very efficient.
Yeah.
So okay, one thing that we did not talk about that I just have a question about, which is the sequence in which you have to talk Joanna off the ledge.
That was a very weird mini game and part of the entire story. I did not like that part.
Can you fail it? Like, will she jump?
I think she just shoots you. I don't think.
Wait, there was a gun? She could shoot you? I didn't even know it was an option.
Wait, what?
What did you guys put inside of her? Because I put in the rebellious thing.
I put in the punk. The rebellious one.
Okay, the punk thing. Yeah, that's what I did.
And she I put in, I think I put in the hippie.
Okay.
That made her, like, sad and miserable about how bad everything was.
Okay.
She wasn't mad at me. She was just, like, really upset. And she was like, all these people I've hurt, I don't know what to do.
So, I guess...
Okay, that's an important distinction.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's like...
She did not have a gun.
Literally the only distinction. Because she had a gun. She had a gun for me, and I'm assuming, Olivia, she had a gun for you, too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I do know that, depending on what you put on her, because there's, like, 3 different, modules you can put in her, that sequence changes, and the difficulty of, like, talking her down increases or decreases, or just a little bit quicker, I should say. Depends on it. But don't think there's a fail state other than like if you just continue to move forward without without her alleviating her stress or whatever, then she'll either jump or shoot you. But I didn't have a problem with that. It was just kind of annoying because it was just like, I ask a question, move forward. I ask a question, move forward. I ask a question, move forward. Use the chill pill. I ask a question, move forward. And it wasn't like, it just took like 7-10 minutes, and I was like, this isn't, I'm not doing anything complex here. I'm just choosing a dialogue option and moving forward. I don't know. What did you guys feel about that sequence?
I had a similar situation to you, Tyler, where it was just kind of like, oh, I'm going to talk to her, and then I failed this thing. Okay, move back. Wait for my chill pill to, like, recharge. Okay, move forward. Sorry, Rebecca, I didn't interrupt you.
That's okay. I think it's illustrative of the fact that the game in the end didn't have any stakes. Really.
Yeah.
It didn't, because even in my conversation with Irving, like, even though he played Russian roulette with me, I could not die.
Correct.
So.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess that ties back into the concept of, like, this was fated, and, like, there was one ending, and it doesn't really matter what you do to get to that ending, you're still going to get to that ending, but at the same time, it's still, you know what I mean? It's, why have so many choices if in the end it really doesn't matter?
Yeah.
Unless that's the point. But then if it is, then I don't know if that was, I don't know. Anyway, I know I can hem and haw about that aspect of it, but I to me that just is like a really high stakes moment that it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I understand from a developer standpoint how it would be difficult to make it high stakes or just have a consequence depending on what happens. But even then, like, let's say she does jump or shoot you. She could shoot you and then like run away, and like you don't get to talk to her again, and like that's one contact that you don't have to use at the very end, and it makes it a little more difficult, I suppose. But like, they probably just wanted it to make sure that the player could get to the end and like it not be a thing. I don't know. I agree that it wasn't. Since it's nonsensical because there's no. It's like Mass Effect, there's not really a bad ending. There's no consequences. Whatever you want to choose is whatever it is. And like, it doesn't really matter at the end. It's all one point that happens, it's the end of the story.
I wonder, I don't know if another game has done it because I can't think of one, but it would be interesting to, I don't know, like for a game to really grapple with its own concept of like self-determination. You know what I mean? Like, the concept of the game is it has to end a certain way, and, like, let's meaningfully engage with what that means, really, because I feel like it's used as a trope, but it's not actually engaging with its own self as, like, a meta-narrative. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I feel like BioShock is, like, the ultimate, like, that's the example that a lot of people hold up, and it's become such a trope at this point because of that game. I feel like that popularized this idea of like, oh, we need to have some in-fiction reason as to why this character was following these orders all along. And I do agree that like having a deeper read on that would be awesome. Like having like, oh, give me the BioShock twist, but like in the first, hour of the game, and then have it pop up like 10 times. And let's like really dig in there. Let's eat our metadata. Yeah. Let's let the Ouroboros totally eat me alive. I want to be in that state.
Yeah. I would be interested in something like that. That would be cool. So, there's a lot, obviously, to unpack in this game. I have to give Deconstructeam a lot of credit because I feel like they do make games that try to deal with tough concepts. And that's cool because, you can't always get it right when it comes to stuff that is really difficult. You know what I mean? If the story was all sunshine and roses, then it's like, okay, that's one thing. But Cyberpunk is hard, and like
in any medium.
Trying to write a story about what does it mean to be happy is hard, and what does it mean to be a person is hard. Although, and I feel like a waypoint shill when I say stuff like this, but I feel like everybody always kind of goes back to Nier Automata when it comes to like what does it mean to be human, and what are robots, and what is love, and what is reality, and all that. But as we're kind of looking at this experience, I'm curious are there any sort of final thoughts, final moments, final themes, like things that you want to engage with that we haven't yet? Or
I guess I really want to stress like how, like, even with its warts and all, I really enjoyed this experience, and I enjoyed the characters, and I enjoyed the act of, you know, talking to people and having to pay attention, and those quizzes were awesome. Like, I just wish there was more. Like, I wish that Deconstructeam could be given like a full budget, and hopefully, you know, as their game, I think Red Strings Club hopefully did pretty well, so I'm really looking forward to see how they build on this. And I'm gonna go back and watch Gods Will Be Watching, because I own it. I just never had a chance to look at it, so I'm excited to take a look at that.
Yeah, that game is really cool. It goes play, like, I think it has a very similar affect to this game, where it like really tries to hit some stuff, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't necessarily matter whether or not it does, it's just that it tried, and I think that has a lot of value and a lot of meaning.
Definitely. And I think that can be applied here. Like, I'm glad they tried to tell a story, even though I don't think it was 100% successful. I'm glad that it got its like place, and I would love to. Let's get the Nos story. Or Ghost story. Sorry, I want Ghost. Give me Red Strings Ghost.
Yeah. God, he was really good.
He was. Yeah. He really was. Yeah. I guess kind of piggybacking off of Liv. Like I said earlier, I also agree that there's more in this world to expand upon. Even like let's say Brandis and his cyberpunk friends, they were just there for the funeral, and like that was it. We literally don't know anything about them, what happened, what their involvement is within this, you know, scheme that was put on. And like that could be a thread, a red string, if you will, to see where it goes with like that and how it plays out. You know, maybe it could be different if you had, you know, some involvement in whatever they were doing. I don't know. So I would like to see if there was like a DLC for this. That would be awesome. I definitely want to see more about Ghost, and I definitely want to hang out with Larissa a lot more. She was like, I enjoyed this game. Overall, I enjoyed this game. I'd recommend it to people. It's a good experience overall. Larissa's like definitely sell point for me. Like, she brightened up the game, and like those are like the best 5 minutes that I had in the game, like with another character, I should say. So.
Yeah, I agree with what you both have said, and you know, I think this was really, really fun, and I remember when I played through like I don't know, maybe the first 2 hours or so, and then I put it down, and I remember just thinking like, wow, like this game is awesome. Like, I love the strategy of having these conversations with people, and I just found it really compelling, and you know, I thought that Akara's questioning was like just brilliant. Like, that was just such a great idea, and it was so well executed, and you know, the way that I walked away from this game did not tamper how I felt about it when I first started it, and that's like the hardest thing to do, is make a good first impression, and I think this game makes an amazing first impression. So you know, a lot of commendation for what it does and what it tries to handle, and the conversations it tries to make, and for just making cyberpunk bartending a genre now. I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? I think that's cool. Let's just make bartending a thing, and put on our VR hats and make our.
I'm gonna make you play that horrible bartending game now. I hope you know.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do it.
Hell yeah.
I'll do it.
You know what was really refreshing about this game, though, too, was that, like, with any game that involves dialogue or involves dialogue where it's, like, a critical point, like, let's say, Dragon Age, or any other RPG, really.
I'm so sorry. It actually sounded like we had, like, edited that part out, and then we had just replaced it with, like, a dubbed-in version of whatever you had said. It was just the perfect deadpan Dragon Age.
But, you know, so when most other video games, when you're faced with a dialogue option, it's like, oh, well, you don't have plus 12 intelligence or whatever, you know. This game, like, I'm glad there was no, like, plus whatever the fuck persuasion skill. It was just literally talking, and the conversations felt more organic that way, because even if you did fail or if you succeeded, like it wasn't like, well, you don't have these dialogue branch paths because you didn't put your points in the correct places, so like that pathway is blocked off for you. It's literally, no, you just didn't get like the right sequence or whatever. And I enjoyed that. I thought that was pretty, I'm not gonna say novel because I'm sure other games have done it, but for this game specifically, this experience, it was actually really nice. So I will say that I really enjoyed that about the game too. So
one of these days, I think Olivia and I are gonna have to sit you down and have you play Fallout New Vegas, because
does Fallout New Vegas do? I thought Fallout New Vegas was all about the pluses.
Well, it is, but like there's an instance that I'm thinking of very specifically where if you are a character of low intelligence, you can hit on your own brain and get rejected.
What?
And I just feel like that's very good.
Dude, a low intelligence game is fucking awesome. We should make you do that. It's like not the optimal way to play, but we should make you do that.
Okay. I'll be all brawn, no brain.
There you go.
Great.
Only hitting, no feeling.
Great.
Well, I think that was a podcast.
Yeah, I agree.
I think.
Me too.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining me in this cyberpunk hellscape that feels very much like our own. I don't know. Everything's awful. Anyway, this has been the Greetings from Spoilercast. You can find us wherever podcasts are hosted, such as Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, Spotify, and others. You can send us your questions to greetingsfromcast@gmail.com, and we will answer them on our normal non-spoilercast episodes, which is most of the time. You can visit us on the web at greetingsfrom.zone. You can follow us on Twitter at greetingsfrompc, and we stream every other Friday at greetingsfrompc on Twitch. My name is Rebecca Faye. You can find me online at Rebecca Faye. It's very easy. Olivia, where can they find you?
You can find me at LivJQ on Twitter. Tyler, where can they find you?
You can find me in cyberspace at World Jumpin'.
Yeehaw, Cyberpunk Cowboys.
Yeehaw.
Thanks for listening to Greetings From. Our intro and outro music is an edited version of Deep Fried Space Food by Substitute Sandwiches. You can find a link to the song in the podcast description. You can listen to more episodes at greetingsfrom.zone. We are also on Twitter and Twitch at greetingsfrompc and on Facebook at greetingsfromcast. Please leave us a review with your thoughts on iTunes or Google Play. It really helps us. See ya, Space Cowboy.